First things first, if you're new to this channel, subscribe because we're going to be posting consistent NBA content throughout the entire season, and we're also going to be posting NFL content as well, so you don't want to miss out on that. So now that that's out of the way, let's get into the topic that I want to talk about, which is why I think the Bucks are going to win the 2022 NBA championship. So there's a lot of reasons for this, and I feel like a lot of people are undervaluing the Bucks and picking teams like the Nets and the Lakers and maybe even the Jazz, the Suns, other teams to win the title. And I feel like the Bucks are being underrated decently heavily, and a lot of people don't really understand the offseason they had, the acquisitions they made. They don't really think they did anything, and just aren't really understanding that the Bucks are going to be a better team this year, which is what I want to talk about. So there's a lot of reasons I think the Bucks are going to be better this year and ultimately win the title. The first one that I wanted to talk about is Giannis's improvement that I think I'm going to see this year. So in the preseason, everyone was talking about it a couple games in when Giannis started playing. He started pulling up from three, hitting mid-ranges, post-fades, stuff like that. Everyone was losing their minds, but a lot of skeptics are like, he's not going to do this in the regular season. He's not going to have the same confidence, the same volume. And yeah, that's true. It's preseason. He was probably just trying that stuff out. But the confidence is there, and it's just going to be that same thing, but from a smaller sample size. And you could just say because it was preseason, it was the reason he was making this. But his form looks a lot smoother. He's a lot more confident. There's not really a hitch in his shot. There's not much hesitation. His elbow's in. It all looks smoother. And I think this season, he doesn't need to be excellent from three, but I think 35% or something like that would be great for him. He needs to be able to not be a liability from the three-point line to where teams are going to sag back off of him. Because if he can get that three-pointer to be pretty effective, teams are going to step up, and that's going to create more driving opportunities and create more opportunities for his teammates. It's just going to help everything overall. They didn't need it last year. They won the title without it, but they're that much better with it. So I'm not saying that he necessarily needs to be shooting from three a ton, but even if he can get his mid-range game refined, he can do some dribble pull-ups, some post fades, stuff like that. That's going to be really good for the Bucks, and that's going to help them out a ton. Another thing I saw last night is that he was really good playmaking-wise. I think he had like 7 assists, and there were a lot of moments where he was just setting up the offense pretty well. And he would be in the post, and he could kick out of it. He did some drive and kick stuff, and it just looked really good, and it looked really improved. So if Giannis is a better player overall than last season when some people thought he should have been at least in the MVP conversation, but there was voter fatigue and stuff like that, I think he could put up an MVP type year and really elevate this Bucks team, and I think he's going to be better this year in the shooting department, playmaking department, and I think he's going to make a case for Defensive Player of the Year, and he's my pick to win Defensive Player of the Year. So I think Giannis is going to be incredible this year. And yeah, so I think Giannis is going to really help them out a lot. Next, we can talk about the additions the Bucks made this offseason. We got to see some of it last night. Some people didn't play as much, but Grayson Allen was the biggest addition. They did a trade with the Grizzlies for him. Forget who they gave up, but it really wasn't much to get Grayson Allen, who's a really quality role player. I really like Grayson Allen. He adds to their defense. He gives them a really viable shooting guy. He attempted 5.5 threes per game last year and made 39% of them. So he's going to be really effective for a Bucks team that finished 10th in shooting last year, in three-point shooting. So he's going to give them more options shooting-wise. And we saw it last night. Giannis would attract a lot of attention in the post or driving. He'd be able to kick it out to Grayson Allen. He only shot 3 of 10, but I think he's going to be really effective. Another thing is I think the Bucks are going to have better secondary ball handlers behind Jrue Holiday. Last year, their secondary ball handler was Jeff Teague because Dante DiVincenzo was out. DiVincenzo is going to be coming back. Grayson Allen's a good secondary ball handler. They brought in George Hill, who I think can do some defensive stuff on the perimeter a little bit. He's 35, but he's going to be an okay secondary ball handler. He's at least comfortable in that role, and he's not really going to give you a ton of scoring, even though he's a decent three-point shooter. But I think he can set up an offense decently well with Jrue Holiday's absence when he's on the bench. Yeah. So that's going to help a lot, and it's not going to really let teams expose your bench unit with Jeff Teague as your secondary ball handler, as it was last year. So they're going to have a lot more options there, which just helps with their overall depth and flow of the game and everything. Talked about George Hill and Jordan Wara. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He had a solid game last night. He had 15 points, pretty effective the entire way through, and I don't think he's really going to play a ton, maybe 15-20 minutes a game. But he can provide some scoring off the bench and be pretty effective. So I like Jordan Wara. I think he's going to have a pretty solid season. And yeah, he's going to be pretty decently effective off the bench. Just talking about last night, the Bucks dominantly beat the Nets without Dante DiVincenzo, Bobby Portis, or Drew Holiday, which, yeah, it's a big deal. And Middleton didn't even have that great of a game. Like, I don't know how many he put up, but he had an okay game. He hit some shots, but he wasn't really consistent the entire way through. But yeah, that's pretty big, beating a Nets team that you can say, like, oh, they didn't have Kyrie or anything, but they beat him by 23 points. Middleton didn't play the best, and those 3 people were out. So that's a pretty big deal. And continuing off of that, what I saw from the preseason and from that game, the Bucks are running a lot of different sets, and their offense doesn't look stagnant like it used to be at some times. And their ball movement is incredible. It looked a lot better last night than it has years previous, so I think that's going to help them out a lot. Just having different sets that they can run, different plays to set different guys up. And their offense just looks a whole lot more fluid, which is really going to help them and not contribute to inconsistency like last year. Like, their offense, hopefully, at least from what I've seen and what I'm expecting this year, is just going to flow a lot more and be a lot more free-flowing, some better sets, and just setting people up better. So, yeah, I think that's going to help a lot. Another thing is that Giannis and everyone's confidence is going to be sky high this year. The people that were on the team last year, their confidence is going to be high because they just won a title, especially Giannis, as we've seen with him pulling out from 3 and stuff like that. But I've seen people say that Giannis is going to have a similar season to 2013 LeBron. And I don't know if I'd go that far and say that. I think he's going to have a great season. But, like, in terms of the confidence LeBron got after winning that ring, yeah, I think Giannis is going to reach similar heights. Continue to be a dominant guy on the inside, provide some scoring on the outside, do a little bit more of playmaking. He's just he's becoming an extremely well-rounded player when a lot of people say he doesn't really have anything in his bag, and that was an argument last year. But he's getting to be really good, and he's going to have a whole lot of confidence, and so is the rest of the team. And that plays a part in how you play as a team. Just having confidence, building chemistry, being with guys you want a title with, that's a big part of winning. The Bucks have an incredibly good defense, people to throw at literally anyone, and they got better defensively with George Hill, Grayson Allen, and they already have a really solid defensive group. The one thing is PJ Tucker's not there anymore. Doesn't allow you to run small ball as well, but that's not the only offense the Bucks ran. It definitely helped them in the Suns series when the Suns didn't have Dario Saric, and the Suns just ran people, like, they didn't run a center the entire time. But, like, the Bucks are going to be fine without small ball, and they've addressed the shooting issue. Wouldn't say it was necessarily an issue, but their shooting's gotten a whole lot better. And they're probably the best defensive team in the league. I could be forgetting about someone. But the Bucks, at the very least, are really good defensively. And as we saw last night, like, they didn't really contain KD, but, like, you can contain KD and Harden for a series. You can probably contain LeBron, Westbrook, and Anthony Davis for a series. They're still going to have their respective and really good nights, but you're going to be able to hold them a lot better than any other teams will. And your offense can do a lot for you if you're not doing well or that well on the defensive end. So they have the most defensive options to throw at different people. Their interior defense is really good. Their perimeter defense is really good. Overall, their defense is just going to give a lot of other teams troubles, and just a really smart, aggressive, great defensive team. What's also going to help the Bucks is that Kyrie's probably not playing this year, or probably not playing on the Nets because he could get traded. I talked about the Kyrie situation in a previous video if you want to go see that. But yeah, not having Kyrie on the Nets is just one less person to worry about on the offensive end on the perimeter. I think the Bucks are going to be a lot healthier than other teams throughout the entire year, when teams like the Nets could deal with injuries to people like LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap, Blake Griffin, KD, and Harden have had their fair share of injuries in the last year. I think they're just going to be more consistent and have guys playing throughout the entire year. And also teams like the Lakers, who already have injuries to Talen Horton-Tucker, Trevor Ariza, Wayne Ellington, they were all out opening night. The Bucks are going to be a lot healthier, and I think they can take these Lakers and Nets teams. I think they're going to continue to have a better offense with more sets. Giannis is going to continue to get better, extremely good defensively. And I think they're a tier above teams like the Heat, even though the Heat got better. The Jazz, the Suns, I think they're going to take care of those teams if they need to. So yeah, the Bucks are my pick to win the 2022 NBA championship. I could do a further video like talking about matchups. I was thinking about doing that in the end, But that's pretty much for the playoffs because you can't really speculate on every individual matchup. So I just wanted to talk about why I thought they got a whole lot better, and they're going to have a really good season. So in the comments, let me know your expectations for the Bucks this season and what you think about my points in this video. So yeah, that's it. Bye.